3 years ago, an officer-involved shooting in Norfolk, Virginia left victim Marius Mitchell with 5 gunshot wounds and 3 felony charges for malicious wounding of an officer, eluding police, and grand larceny of a police vehicle. The first trial ended in a hung jury. As the only news outlet to attend the second trial in its entirety, ASN reporter Andrew Westmoreland witnessed the suppression of key defense evidence and witness testimony. Despite the legal hurdles, the defense was able to prove Mr. Mitchell's innocence on all 3 charges against him. After denying requests for interviews from other news agencies, the Mitchell family sat down exclusively with ASN to share their story with our Andrew Westmoreland.
So, going back to that day that this happened, obviously it was incredibly stressful. Initially, when you first got word, what happened? Like, how did you all respond?
I responded when I heard the call to go to where it had actually happened, and immediately I got weak in the knees. It was one of the worst days of my life. One of the worst days of my life. I saw the ambulance and I tried to explain to them that that was my son, and I attempted to get an ambulance, but quickly I was stopped. No one told me anything other than he was shot. I knew that part. But we got questioned, and the way that we were questioned was grilled, and all I could see was a big pool of blood, almost the size of this table, where my son had been. I saw some of that stuff, and I said, oh, it was one of the worst days of my life. Couldn't find out anything, but later we found out in the news that, my son had been shot by the police. They didn't tell me that. The news, they talked to the news, but they wouldn't talk to me.
And Miss Mitchell,
Well,
how did you find out? And
my daughter got a call, and I immediately went into shock. I was immobilized. I couldn't move. And they kept telling me to come on, and I couldn't move, so they left me. And I don't know what happened, but when I heard the sirens, that's when I realized that they were for my son, and I lost it. And that's about it. And then I just paced and walked and waited on word. Waited on a word from my family.
It was an out-of-body experience actually for me, because it was surreal, and I just went into tunnel vision mode because I knew that I had to drive, and I knew I was trying to find out what was going on. So I heard people talking, but I didn't hear everything because I was trying to take in the whole situation and try to see where he was and what really was going on out there.
so once you all found out that this happened, what was the next step? You're trying to contact authorities or the hospital, and what happened from there?
Well, I'll tell you what happened next is on the scene, we heard this lady that was screaming, why did he get shot? And we were being grilled about our phones. He tried to snatch the phone out of her hand and threatened me to take mine out of my hand. And I'm trying to figure out what was this all about, because I wanted to know whether or not they had a suspect who had shot my son. They wouldn't tell me that. They wouldn't tell me anything other than, give me your phone, and we want the phone, who called to you, and all of that. And we ended up going down there to find out what had happened. Meanwhile, they knew what had happened, but they wouldn't tell us, but they told the local news media. How is this possible here? I thought that when something happens, the police are supposed to come and tell you what had happened. Oh no, they were hiding things from the very beginning. And when we got to the hospital, that's when it really started happening. It really got weird when we got to the hospital, because the police were controlling the hospital. We didn't know what was happening.
Not at that time. We didn't know.
No, we didn't know.
Yeah. So we sent an emergency the doctor came down and told me that he would survive, and that a chaplain came down, took us to the waiting area, and there we sit, waiting to hear a word from who was in charge, a Jarvis, someone named Officer Jarvis. And my sister was with me, and we were sitting there just waiting, and finally she said, Jarvis. She said, he's a homicide detective. Once again, I went into panic mode, and we tried to go down the hall and get answers, and they shut us down. They shut us down completely.
Can I add to that? These cops, these police officers were so arrogant and they were so hostile. We had no idea why they were being that way. They were protecting themselves. We had no clue that they had done it. They never told us. All they were concerned with was apparently hoping that something would happen to him, because that's why I kept calling this number, this Jarvis guy, trying to find out a suspect. He never called me back.
Never.
Never called me back. No one ever told me anything other than the fact that we found out on the news that he had been shot by the police. And they were very uncooperative. They were very hostile. And these people were just blatantly doing things that we couldn't understand.
No.
We didn't understand why they were doing things like they were
The
doing.
only thing they kept verbalizing was, we don't want any trouble. We don't want any trouble.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they say.
That's
We
what
don't
they
Over
want
and
any
over.
trouble.
We
So
don't-
I'm like, me, my two sisters, and my daughter, how could they get trouble from us?
This is what the lady said. I know how you feel.
What lady is this?
One of the police officers.
You know her
up there.
name?
I don't remember
Oh,
her
was
name.
it-
Everything
Blonde
was
hair,
Was it Officer
ponytail.
Hardy?
Hardy.
Hardy.
something
We know how
like
you
that.
feel, and we don't want no trouble, so you need to effing calm down. You know how I feel. We didn't know that the police had done it. I guess that's why they said we don't want any trouble.
So when it was about dusk, I wanted some answers. We had been there all day. So I attempted to go down the hall, and security, the police, everybody came rushing forward with hostile, I don't know what they were saying, but they were yelling, telling us to get back. We couldn't come down there. I said, all I want to know is how my son is doing. They gave me no information. They told me that I had to talk to this Jarvis person, and he was unreachable the whole time. So they told us we had to leave. So we went to the elevator, and the same blonde cop started reaching over people, screaming stuff at me.
Was that Officer Hardy?
Yes, screaming stuff at me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what she was saying, because I was out of body too, but she was real nasty for no reason, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm naive to the law. I didn't know that they worked like they did, but now I do.
There's more. After we couldn't get in touch with Jarvis, and after we had found out that the police had done it, and I brought this up at one of the town hall meetings, it took us 23 days to find out whether he was dead or alive. They would not tell us. They kept him incommunicado. They would not let him talk to a lawyer. I sent one, he was turned away. All I wanted to do was find out whether he was dead or alive. I kept calling the hospital, and they told me, we can't tell you whether he's dead or alive.
But
I went down there. I actually went down there, and I actually got up on the floor, and I just simply asked the question, you know, I'm looking for my brother and I need to know how he's doing. And she asked me what was his name, and I told her, and she said, you're not supposed to be up here, but he's not up here anymore. He's been moved downstairs. And I said, thank you. that's a good sign. And she says, you need to talk to a lawyer so you can get to him. And I said, I'm on top of it right now.
That when she was told to talk to a lawyer, that's when I decided to go send one, because I wanted to find out whether they was dead or alive, because they wouldn't tell me. And the lawyer came back and said, they said that he can't talk to me. And I said, you're a lawyer. I don't know whether he's incapacitated or not. He can't, maybe he can't speak. But would you go down there and find out? Because I think he needs a lawyer. So I found out he needs a lawyer. Lawyer went down there, got turned away. I said, they can't tell you you can't see.
He got turned away by who?
By the police in the hospital.
Okay.
And they told him he couldn't talk to anybody. I'm like, you're a lawyer. He could talk to you. He couldn't make a phone call. I didn't know whether he could make a phone call. I didn't know whether he was in a coma or what. They wouldn't tell me anything. They would not cooperate with me. They had him, and they were probably hoping that something would happen to him so we wouldn't get to this point that we are now. That's what they were hoping for. And it took us a while to figure it out, but they were hoping that he would pass away, and then they would come up with their own little crazy story, just like this whole case is about. And it just would have been another story. But now that all of these things are coming out that they did, these people are horrible.
Yeah.
They are absolutely monsters. These people have turned from public servants and now they're public serpents. They are going after people, and they are doing things and they're hiding things. And there's something wrong with this system, the way that they're doing things here. It needs somebody really needs to look into what they're doing here.
But I knew it was a conspiracy because I heard from him, my son, that on the scene they raised his legs in the air, and an EMT came and asked him what the hell were they doing.
No, actually that was Officer Zinsky. She was an actual arriving officer that you would see actually on the video. And you know, I was actually telling them to put my legs down because you know I was feeling dizzy. And then she actually intervened in the midst of them doing their procedure. Because I asked the guy, I said, hey, why are you raising my legs in the air? And then he said that he had my legs in the air because he was actually trying to prevent me from passing out. So I guess about 7 to 10 minutes into it, Officer Zinsky intervened aggressively, and then she added that you can't lift his legs up. All of his wounds are above, you know, his torso, and you're going to kill him. And when she said that about 3 times, you're going to kill him, you're going to kill him. And then I just was panicking, like, hey, put my legs down. Listen to the lady. Put my legs down. And then, you know, they just dropped my legs on the ground. Boom. And I was just there.
And it took forever for him to go to the hospital. He took the long route.
Yeah.
I think you said they call it the nickel route. They gave him that.
No EMTs in the back of the ambulance.
They didn't want, yeah.
They put me in the back of the ambulance with 2 officers. Officer Winnie, who actually lied at trial about applying medical attention to me. You know, everybody knows that Officer Sims was the actual guy who actually put his hand on the front of my neck and on the side. At trial, Winnie said that he was the only one that administered medical attention on the scene, and I was like, wow. Who lies about saving someone's life? And the guy sitting right there who knows different. So that was the situation. And then in the back of the ambulance, he was asked by Zinsky to apply the same method that Sims had did, and he totally denied it. He was like, ew, why would I do that? And then she, you know, fried him and said, hey, you need to do what I asked you to do. And then he attempted to do the same thing that Officer Sims had did out there, but it was all wrong, and I just told him not to touch me. And I also asked the EMT people why weren't they back there with me, because see, I had open wounds and I was bleeding everywhere, and they applied no pressure to slow the bleeding down or just anything. I was just all over the place, just dripping blood everywhere. Blood was actually just pulsating up the side of my neck, and I'm thinking that maybe they would, you know, tie it off or try to, you know, stop the bleeding instead of just okay, well, you're relieved of your medical attention. We're just going to put him in the back of the ambulance and drive him down there. And there was no follow-up on the on-scene medical help. The EMTs just practically left him at the mercy of the officers in the back of the ambulance.
What I can't figure out is this, is that why would they take the route that they took to the hospital? Hampton Boulevard is a straight shot to Centera. Why would you go to Terminal Boulevard, turn left, go to Granby Street, go past DePaul Hospital all the way up to Bramilton, and then go back down Bramilton to get to Centera when there was a straight shot? I think that they were not exactly helping the situation. I think they wanted it to go the other way. That's the only reason why you would take that route. Why would you do that?
Yeah, you have a 7-minute route versus a 17-minute route.
Right, or a 20.
Right.
The shortest distance is a straight line.
With no medical assistance.
With no medical assistance.
Yeah.
They wanted him to, they wanted it.
Yeah, to die.
They wanted him to die.
Yeah.
And their intentions were not honorable. They were not honorable.
So, going a little bit, fast forwarding quite a bit here. You know, you had the first trial, and then you had this recent one. What were the emotions and thoughts on this latest trial while it was occurring?
I would say that thank goodness that we had some people that had some sense and could actually deal with the truth and the facts here. Everything that the Commonwealth's attorney did was, I call it smoke screen and mirrors. His intention was to cover up the fact, and he have to have known the fact that this guy had made the statement, but yet and still he went forward on a malicious prosecution. This prosecution was totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. The stories that these supposed witnesses told, you can't coach a lie because it changes. But what my son did is what we always talked about. If you tell the truth, you won't have to remember what you said. Won't have to remember anything. It was what it was. Why do we have 5 or 6 conflicting stories from this police officer? Why is this evidence being suppressed? Why are they doing things that they knew that was illegal, but they did it anyway? And thank goodness this case turned out differently. Son was shot 5 times and faced 50 years in prison after he was shot.
Well, my general thoughts on everything with this trial was, I was just hoping to God that my years of studying ballistic fingerprinting and forensic would pay off. My lawyers seem to be not transparent at all. I would come to them with information that would totally exonerate me, and you know, they weren't being transparent. I don't really know what was the purpose of that, but my thoughts during the trial was hopefully they would use all of the evidence that I've unscathed over the years, because I did a lot of reading. I knew what angle the cop had shot me from, and it seems to me that everybody was saying, hey, just save that for the civil trial. And I'm getting into, hey, the direction of the projectiles will actually substantiate or go against what the officer was saying. So the whole trial, I was begging for a medical expert or a ballistic expert to actually come in and substantiate my side and say, hey, this was impossible. And I had deep concerns on my defense lawyers not using the original dispatch. Basically, I was actually anticipating them, to use all of the information that I had accumulated over a period of time. one of my deepest concerns at the beginning of the trial was, where's my motion of discovery? You know, I begged for it. The same way I begged for a lawyer and I begged for counsel and phone calls in the hospital. It's now the second trial, and I'm now asking my lawyers like, hey, there's no motion of discovery. And I've asked you for it before, and my previous lawyer filed an actual motion to compel. So my thing was, are they going to actually take me to trial without a motion of discovery upon request? Because I actually audited the judge on that, and I asked him, I said, hey, I've never received a motion of discovery whatsoever. I don't know what type of information the Commonwealth is putting on. I don't know what type of surprise evidence or witnesses that they're putting on. Not that it would matter, but I would like to know, just in case it's something weird, and I can tell my counselor like, hey, that's totally not true. This didn't happen. I didn't have the right material to go to trial. It was almost handicapped. They had everything. They knew what we were putting on, but I knew nothing that they were putting on. Also, another deep concern at the beginning of the trial that had me just totally terrified was, I explained to Judge Nigliosi, I explained to him that they were totally past the 3-day, 72-hour period to be able to adjudicate or have jurisdiction over an individual to be able to continue on with your proceedings. And I explained to him that it was actually 2 weeks before I was read my charges. I begged for my charges in the hospital so I could know what charges I had. They told me, we don't know, you can't get a lawyer. They used, cynicism, dark humor in the hospital. And I explained to the judge that after 2 weeks, I was read my charges, which clearly violates the 72-hour law, which you have to read an individual his rights within 3 days. And in my case, it was 2 weeks. And the judge told me, after about 7 to 10 seconds of silence and, Google eyeballs, he was just saying, that has nothing to do with the trial. What does that have to do with the trial? And I told him everything. It has everything to do with the trial. How can you all have jurisdiction and continue on with your proceedings and adjudicate if the person doesn't belong to the system? I don't belong to the system. You can't adjudicate because you all didn't charge me. And I begged for a lawyer and I begged for my charges, and you wouldn't tell me. So that was one of the main concerns there at trial. I was like, wow, they're actually trying to go through with this trial without basic fundamental things.
You had to argue that motion yourself?
Yes. And
why? How did that come about? How come the lawyers didn't argue that motion for you?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, they said that and this was the actual Commonwealth speaking, they said that the dispatch will not be used in such a trial because it would prejudice the prosecution of the case. So to my understanding, I was thinking that maybe they didn't want to use that because if they did, then it would totally blow open the whole case. You would hear the shots, you would hear Latika Gray screaming, you would hear the officer radioing in that he was shot, and different things of that nature. So I'm thinking that maybe it would be severely inflammatory to anybody who would be, because they had to construct the trial.
So how did you feel like during the proceedings when you were there? Like, what was going through your mind? What did you think of what was going to happen before the actual outcome?
I was actually nervous because I was not allowed in the courtroom at all, so I was unable to hear or see anything, and I just saw when they came out for breaks, and you can see the look on people's faces as they were coming out of the courtroom, and of course them not being able to talk to me and me not being able to talk to anybody was a bit unnerving for me.
Well, how do you all feel about Robertson, and do you think he should be charged?
Can I comment on this? While we were in the hallway, Officer Robertson came to me with tears in his eyes, and he had on his badge and his gun, and it kind of appeared strange to me, like okay, it's me and him and another lady that was sitting off at the distance, a little bit further away. Where is this going? This guy, what's going on here? He came to me and he said, Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry. I think you have a fine son, and I think you're a fine father. Wish I had a father like you. He says, you stood by him, and I would like to know if you would accept my apology. And I'm sorry. So would you accept my apology? At first, I'm looking at him like, you're extending your right hand. You have that same gun that shot my son. And now that hand is extending out. But he said, would I find it in my heart to forgive him? And I said, well, I can't harbor this forever. So I shook his hand. Then later, the snake turned on me. It's like that old saying about, you know I was a snake. It's a snake. And he was taunting like, and I just couldn't take any more of him. I had enough of him. Because he tricked me into shaking his hands. His apology was not sincere. I knew then it was not sincere. He didn't mean what he said. It was just another smoke screen in the mirror.
My thoughts about Robertson, because see, me and Officer Robertson, we even had words after the shooting, and I was just surprised that they didn't bring that up. You know, they brought it up at pre-trial that we had words. And I asked them, you know, afterwards, are you going to save me? And I had a family, I had my hands in the air. Are you happy now? You messed my outfit up. It was different things that were said to Robertson, you know, and he knows the intimacy of how close we were even afterwards with, you know, me telling him, hey, you didn't have to go this far. And this was probably about 10 to 15 seconds before, you know, that video where you see the officer flying down. We had words after, you know, even before the officer was halfway to that 7-Eleven location. My thoughts on Robertson now, I think that he should face charges, considering that they were trying to, you know, give me charges, and he actually shot me with my hands in the air, and I told him downstairs, you know, when him and my dad had the confrontation, I said, hey, when are you gonna just man up and just tell him you shot me with my hands in the air? You know, when are you gonna do that? And then he shrugged and said, have a nice day, and things of that nature. And accountability. I just want to, you know, in this world, we all have, at some point, have to be accountable and even speak it. You know, hey, I did certain things and I'm sorry. I would just like an apology face to face, you know, with Officer Robertson. I really have no animosity towards him. I don't really like his character, but I don't hate the guy. And I believe that he is dangerous though, because, you know, just.
Can I add? I would like to add the fact that when my son's interview, when they had this statement that he brought up PTSD in that interview, okay? It's ironic because I had said earlier, not knowing during that interview, I had mentioned the fact that maybe this guy had PTSD. I mentioned it to my family. Not knowing that he had the interview and he brought it up. We go to a town hall meeting and he brings up the fact that there is no type of support system for people that have been traumatized and they may have PTSD.
Well, people who actually got shot by the police.
By the police, okay.
I asked that Mayor Frame, you know, why isn't there programs for people who've seen people get shot by the police and people who have been shot by the police? There are no programs in place for people who've had encounters with police officers, like, you know, a debriefing, like, hey, you had an encounter with an officer. Are you hate them now? Are you in fear of them? You know, they don't have a screening process for people who've had encounters with these paramilitary individuals who, you know, pretty much have one set way of handling things. But I did actually bring up the PTSD thing at the town hall meeting with Mayor Frame. I asked him personally, why don't they have those programs, and he said that they would actually look into it. And like he said, ironically, the officer had it.
He confirms it at the trial. We knew nothing about this, and he comes up at the trial and says, oh, he has it. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, this is really spinning here towards another direction here, because the way that we understand it, they knew he had it. And yet still, he has a badge and a gun. This is equivalent to giving someone that's unstable this power. You're giving a broken robot weapons and authority here. I mean, this guy is not supposed to be doing what he's doing if he's that. How do we know that he's not on some type of medication when he's out there doing this stuff?
So now that, the trial's over, Marius is free, where do you guys go from here? Like, how do you feel about, him getting vindicated, and, how do you guys move forward?
I am moving forward. This is the day that ever since he was charged, and then all those times that I was going down there to the jail to see him and couldn't get him out, the only thing that I really wanted for my son is for him to be able to walk out of the door and look up at the sky and see nothing but the sky and clouds and the sun, and that he's free and he's alive. And when they said that he was not guilty on all of those charges, it was as if someone just took this thing off of me and just said, it was like this dark cloud that was hovering around me all the time, thinking that they were going to take him away. And when he walked out of there, that was, it went from the worst day of my life to the best day of my life. It went from the worst, from the first day that it started to the best day of my life. For him to walk out of there free, a free man, with none of this stuff on him. And later on, I found out that they were trying to give him 50 years. 50 years. After all that he'd been through.
I am a faith-based person. I always knew that he would be exonerated. I didn't know how, but I had that faith. And it's been a tumultuous time for us, and we're going to have to piece our lives together. For the first 3 days, it's like it hasn't been real. And only Monday have I begun to feel like real. Just a couple of days ago, I'm trying to get back into life, because life stopped for us. That uncertainty, it was, I don't think there's a word for it. It's been a journey, and I'm just glad, and it's not over yet.
Almost 3 years.
We're gonna be okay with God's grace and mercy.
Just time for healing.
Yeah. It's time to heal.
We're a close-knit family. We've been
Always have been
together for all their lives. I've seen all my children their whole lives, and for them to do the stuff that they did, those 23 days, it's as if every year I'm sitting here now feeling like actually I'm 87. Those 23 days, where every day was 1 year. You don't know what is going on, but you know that they have something to do with it. But they are telling you that they won't tell you whether he's dead or alive. This is the hospital. They have him in there. And you have the police controlling the hospital. And they're telling you that your son, they can't tell you whether he's dead or alive. There's something seriously wrong with that. There's something seriously wrong. For them to have that much power, there's something really seriously wrong with that. And we see what the outcome of this situation is here with this so-called court case here, with the outcome being that the way that it was, they should be held accountable. You just can't hold anybody. He's not a terrorist. He didn't even commit a crime, but they did.